Hello. Hope I am audible to everyone. So let's get started. So today I am going to discuss more about fundamentals of cloud code. Okay. Sorry for the bad video, uh, bad camera. So now we're gonna start a series, full end-to-end production things that how we are using cloud code in our day-to-day professional life. So we're gonna start with the cloud code. Mm, Cloud code. So what is cloud code? Cloud code is a tool, right? Tool you can is a tool which help to write the code, debug the code, and write the test cases, debug the generating the report daily, uh, to dedicate a small task to the cloud code. So the cloud code is mainly a junior assistance to you, which help you uh, to do the set of daily repetitive work. So you can delegate some of the daily tasks which we are doing, right. So you can delegate to the cloud. So cloud code will handle on your behalf. That is the main use of, and we can think like cloud code is a junior assistance to you, junior assistant. Just simple as that. So first we'll discuss today in the term of cloud code, right? Last time we discussed the API keys, how we're going to generate API key, everything. So let's start with the basic token. What is token? Suppose we have a sentence, right? So sentence can be break down into, yeah, we can call it like we have a paragraph. Okay. So paragraph can be break down into sentences, right? And sentences can be break down into words, right? The smallest unit of a word we can call it like a token. So here word can be token, word can be token. Okay. So think in that perspective. That's what we have the paragraph, we have the sentence, and we have the smallest unit. It can be word, here can be considered as token. So here token can be word, yeah, token can be character, that kind of things. Yeah, can be is whole sentence, right? Can be string, right? So it depend on what we are considering as a one token. So mainly we are considering word as a token. For default every system, right? One word is one token. So now we have the understanding about the tokens, right? What is token? And let's understand about the embedding. The second term is, right, embedding. So let's try to understand embedding. Uh, Embedding is mainly equal to numerical numerical representation. We can think like numerical representation. Representation. So suppose we have the embedding, right? Embedding of any text, then same text need to represent in numerical values. How can we represent? That is the job. So here is like we have the embedding model. We have the model. This is the model. This is the model. When we pass the input text, Input text means sentences, right? Yeah, paragraph. When we pass the input text, then it will provide you the numerical representations of numbers, like numerical representations of numbers. That is what embedding is, right? So there will be in LLM we are mainly using LLM based model, embedding. So these are the sentences, yeah, paragraph. Okay, this is the numbers, right? We can call it this is the numbers, numerical numerical representation. So simply this is the embedding model. We can call it embedding model. Okay. Simply flow is like we have sentences. We have the sentences, right? Sentences when we pass to the embedding model, then embedding model output will be numerical representation. That is what the embedding means. Embedding means whatever the natural language, we have the natural language converted into the numerical representation. So human can understand the natural language, right? Which we are speaking on daily basis, right? But machine cannot understand. So to understand the machine, we need the numerical values. So machine only understand the numerical values, right? So that is the main job here. So another we have the contextualization. Context. What is context, right? So if you let's talk about some context. If someone have basic idea about the how LLM works, right? So this is more important, right? Context. What if suppose we have any models, right? Suppose we have a model. This is the model, and this is the model. We are passing some input, right? Some input to them, and we'll get some output from here, right? And out input input can be questions, right? Questions, and you want and how model will understand how to process these questions, right? What are the answers your questions, and you model does not know answer about the questions, anything. Uh, suppose then how will you give the some reference to questions, reference reference to questions, right? Models give the reference to questions, right? For example, that is called context, right? So both these two, mix of these two can be a context, right? And model will generate some output over here based on the reference. So so here you think like question, yeah, reference to the questions means how uh, find the reference answers, yeah, instruction can be, right? Examples of questions, right? Examples of questions. That kind of things are considered as the context. So so very basic. We can keep in mind context is something we are passing to the LLM. Passing to the LLM. What are things we can pass? We can pass the questions, reference to the questions means they can check the documentation. For example, we ask about the India, right? We pass the document of India, so they can answer based on the document. Based on the document, we pass the instructions. Suppose, for example, we have the mathematical equation. LLM does not know how to solve that mathematical equation. Then we can pass the instruction. You need to solve step by step. You need to think this step one, then step two. That is the instruction. Yeah, we can give the some examples to the question. So LLM understand on by on learning, right? that that is the main thing here is the context. And I hope everyone able to get understand. And next term is generation. So generation we discussing here over here only. in this diagram only. What does the generation means, right? Suppose we have the context, we pass the context till here, right? This is related to context, okay? Then what are the output is coming from the model, right? This is the model that's come under the generation. That's come under the generation. This is the LLM model. This is LLM model, right? That comes under the generation. Based on instruction, whatever the outputs comes, right? That can be your generation phase. So in generations, we have to keep some of the things in the mind. Okay, uh, if you go discuss more about the temperature, more about models, right? So we'll discuss later about the models. So we are skipping over here LLM model part. Speaking model part. Okay, model. Okay, we'll discuss later in more depth instead of just covering the basic terms so everyone can understand, right? So now we have the generation, right? Generation can be singleton, multi-ton. For example, what does mean that, right? So so this is the model. This is the model, right? Yeah, we can draw proper diagram. This is one of the models, right? So another we have something like this. This is the chat window. The chat window. Another we have another chat window, right? So here, if you here see, right, this can be chat window. This is chat window, right? So, so what happened? This is chat window. When we have the models, right? So we have the questions. We ask the questions over here. Ask a questions, right? Questions and get answers. And get answers. So this is the this is the get answer. This is the one way of doing, right? But in that case, model does not able to answer based on we are again ask a question from previous term from previous term. Okay, so model not able to answer, right? Not able to answer. So so basically, what happening over here, right? When we ask a questions in a chat window, we ask a question, what is the capital of India, right? They will answer you, capital of India is like New Delhi, right? Again, we ask a little bit detail about what we asked in earlier question. For example, we ask a questions like in previous questions, which country I mentioned you, right? So again, we ask a previous question. Then model will not able to answer related to this question. So that is the main issue. This is one kind of generation, right? So we can call it this is singleton. We can only ask a questions and get an answer, and we try to access the details related to previous questions. Yeah, previous whatever the reference we pass, model is not able to understand. That is the one issue in generations we are facing, right? So how could deal with that? So whenever we have the LLM models, right, we do not have a, uh, we do not have any uh, any storing mechanism. For example, they are not storing any chat, right? For example, if we have LLM model, right, we ask a question. We again ask a questions to the in previous context, right? Previous question answering. So we try to ask a previous questions details, right? So model will not catch everything, right? So here in this case, it's your application designer duty to store the to store the reference response of previous context. So how to overcome this problem, right? So let's discuss another scenario where we can we will overcome this chat window. So this is another chat window, right? This is another chat window. So here we will have also model is attached to that, where what going to happen over here, right? Ask a questions, ask a questions, and get answers. You get answers. This is simple, right? So I get answers and again ask questions. Again ask a reference questions, and again get answers. Answers. How it's happening, right? How it's able to memorize, right? So application developer, right? Application uh, developer have to send the previous response detail each time, every time. So, so what happening over here, right? So this is the chat window, another chat window. We ask questions, right? Again, we get an answer. We again ask reference questions, right? Reference questions from the previous context. Again, get an answer. But how the application developer is designed that? So application developer design, they have they are passing the context right over here as a reference. Whatever we discuss over these questions, right, they again passing all this in the form of context. So here we are, what previous conversation we are passing as the context in the simple term. This is the how the multi-term work, right? People chat with the LM continuously, right? This is the way of working over the applications, how the applications will work internally. This is the how. So initial what happening, like send your initial request to the cloud, and cloud take the response and add to your message list, right? You have the message list, right? For example, yeah, we have the list, right? Message list where all this message is going to record, record, and every time we are sending this can be a message one, uh, message one. This this can be message two, like that, M2, like that, right? Same way, of course, right? So this can be happen. Then add a follow-up question. We ask a follow-up question over here. This is the follow-up questions. Follow-up questions, right? So this is the follow-up questions, right? So we ask a follow-up question and send the entire conversation. We are sending whole list as the context. This is passing to the context, right? So this is the way how application works. So we hope we get some idea related to the applications, how these things are working. Now we'll discuss little bit more detail about the structuring, how we're going to structure this context, right? So so let's discuss first about the system prompt, right? Let's discuss about the system prompt, right? When we are when we are passing the context, right? When we are try to instruct the model, right? In that case, what is going to happen is, right, in that case we need to pass the some prompt over here, some prompt over here. So so this can be system prompt. For example, we are passing uh, you are the assistant role, and you are doing assistant role. Your job, you are web search agent, right? We can call it, right? You are web search agent. Your job is to find the best resources from the internet, from the web. that kind of thing. So when we define a role to particular LLM, means it means how to behave. We change the behavior of LLM. Basically, we can call it like system prompt uh, help to change the behavior of one LLM. Basically, it change the behavior of LLM, right? This is the main job of the system prompts, right? So we'll decide how the system model will behave, right? It is behave as the assistant, uh, web search agent, behave as the database admin, administrator. Yeah, that kind of things. We can assign a role. That is the main job of the system prompt. So how model will behave to the situation. So it will help to answer, right? So we in system prompt, right? If you see, right, we decided we have given the set of instruction as a system prompt. We provide the set of instruction as role. Again, this is all about the system prompt. System prompt is mainly decide the role define, yeah, guidance over that. So again, this is all about the system prompt, which help to change the behavior. Okay, let's discuss in detail more about the temperature things. Means in what situations we'll have what kind of temperature is best benefit. Model temperature. So temperature variable, right? So model have like 0 to 1 value, right? 0 to 1. There is a model temperature parameter. So we have the model can accept 0 to 1 value. So 0 is for deterministic behavior. Deterministic deterministic behavior. Deterministic behavior. Or one we can call it for one is for creative behavior. So how we'll understand, right, what is deterministic behavior and what is uh, deterministic behavior. So we'll discuss more about let's say deterministic behavior. If you go in detail of deterministic behavior, what will what will happen, right? So for example, we have a classification task. For example, we have the classification task something like we have to we have to define class, right? We have these are the classes. We have to pick up one. We does not need any creative, does not need anything. It's just to pick one of them, right? This particular set will belong to which class, right? That kind of things. Classification uh, can be a deterministic behavior. We are not changing over the times, right? Classification task, like we need deterministic behavior. We do not have to assume, you do not have to think out of box. So so this is the main thing around the classification deterministic behavior. If you if you go with example with the example of this creative behavior, right? You able to find, right, something like we have to write a story, yeah, write a poem, right? Write a story, right? So history writing will need a lot of creativity of the models, right? That is the main thing. If you see over here, need lot of creativity, right? So a lot of creativity is needed. So we need the creativity behavior. So so it is, we keep it 0 for the classification. We does not have to assume anything. If you need a lot of creative thinking, lot of brainstorming the task, right? On that case we need a creative behavior. We can do a brainstorming, right? That kind of things. So here we can also do like summarization task. We can summarize the given text, right? generating a summary, just a summarization of that kind of thing. So this is also considered as the deterministic behavior. Hope able to understand why. So another term here is coming, how we set the model temperature of LLM model temperature. So we understand the problem, what type of problem. It's a classical problem. We are doing summarization. We are drafting email, right? That kind of things. We need to think what kind of problem it is. If it is a problem, we does not need creativity. We go for the lower temperature, and if we have the greater creativity, we go for the higher temperature. Here will be zero. Here will be half. If creativity needed, we need to increase the temperature. If creativity not needed, we need to decrease the temperature. So that is very simple over here. So we mainly discuss about the model temperature, right? Any question till here? Anyone? They can ask over the chat. I will try to respond as soon as possible. Okay. Let's uh, let's understand one more concept. This is behavioral and streaming things, right? How streaming works, right? So streaming, right? More generating continuous response, right? So how we are streaming, right? So if we start with very basic, right? How we'll do streaming? Streaming, how streaming happen, right? We are doing streaming on YouTube, right? So how what is happening, right? So when we are generating something content, right? Is generating content, and generating content by packet is transferring to you, right? It is not at once. Small context is token is coming to you. So this is called streaming, right? This can be a token one, right? This can be T1, right? Here this can be T2, token two. This is token. This is three, token four. How these things are coming to you? Same thing happened to model as well. For example, we have a very large application, right? And we ask a questions, right? We ask a questions from the models. Then model have to think, right, and check the relevant context resources, right, to find the answers, right. So model need times, right. So any user can and try to access the application. They ask a questions, right. Simply user ask a questions, and user have to wait until the will get answers, right. Wait uh, wait till get answers, right. So this is the how default things is working, right. but but no person's like to wait, right. So how will you manage them, right. Some person, uh, for example, we ask questions and 1 minute we are not getting answers. So person can be impatient, right. What is going over there, it getting any errors, anything, that kind of things happening over here, right. So how can address these types of issues? That is the main thing. How can we address that? So we need to address this. We need a streaming thing, right. uh, Streaming thing. So so what we'll do, right. For example, what we'll do, will generate a tokens, right. LLM generate a answer token by token by token. So when we generate a one token and two tokens, we send one token to application app. When we generate a second token, we again send. When we generate a third token, again send. So user does not have to wait to get a full response. Full response. Here we get a response token by token. So what happened? Ask a question, ask a question, ask a question, no wait, no waiting time, and sending token by token response. Token by token response. So token by token, this is the how streaming work, right? So when we ask questions, we get a some one word, then I get a second word, then they get a second, third. So user are engaged with the applications. They try to understand, and LLM is also getting generated. So that kind of things is happening over here. Hope everyone clear with the streaming part. So streaming is one of the production concept. We have to discuss in production how we manage the production things, right? So this is the if you build enterprise applications, right? That kind of concept we need it for enterprise applications. So hope everyone able to get understanding about the streaming event. So streaming event if we go in detail about the streaming event, I can explain you message by message. So how streaming work? Let's see. First we start a message, right? Message start event sent. A message start event was sent. This is the initial in first step, right? They start generating, right? Then we have the content block start. We have the content block. So so they will start writing your answer. Content block start, right? They will start writing your answer. Then we'll have content block chunk, right? Content block chunk. Block delta means they will send you this block delta. So each delta VL is targeting. This is we call it over here a token. So content block delta will start receiving, right? Will receive the content block. Then content block stop. Then content block stop. If we finish the content, they will send you the content block stop. Stop means all response are completed. After that, they will send you just a simple message, message delta, message delta. Uh, this means that message delta means the response is completed. What is the meaning is response is completed, and उसके बाद message is stopped. This is the how process. When we ask a question, they initiate with the message start, right? Start. After that, content block start means they start generating your answers. We'll receive multiple content block delta. Delta in third step, we receive multiple content block delta. What does mean that? They are whatever the answers is generating to your questions, right? They start writing in the inside the content block in the and you have to stream this content block delta, right? And again we'll stop the content block. We means that and message delta message your answer is completed now and message stops in we sending the event, right? We have completed your message. We are terminating the connections to the applications. That is the whole process, streaming process. This is the streaming process. We call it right streaming process. This is streaming process. Okay. So message start. The conversation start with the message start. Then content start block. Then we start sending the content with delta. And once we response is completed, we send a event like stop signal. Then we delta. It means that message is completed. We are not sending anything more. Then message gets terminated. This is the how things work over the time streaming process. So we can discuss one more thing regarding structuring structured data. Structured data, right? So so structured data means how can we structure, right? For example, we we have the text, right? Text, and how can we convert into the table, something like that. Table structured data will help you over there. We need to convert in the JSON, so we can call it like, it can be table, yeah, JSON, yeah, table JSON, yes, CSV, that kind of things, right? So how model will convert, that will, so structured data will help you. So when we have a model, right, when we have a model, we pass the context, yeah, prompt, we pass the prompt, and prompt will contain some format of data. Here will have, what will have, format, format like one table, output, like table, yeah, JSON, something like that, so model will provide you JSON over. This is the table. This is all about structured data. So for now, for today videos, uh, we keep it here, ending here. It's a use content. So tomorrow we'll start from next content. Means maybe prompt evaluations, how we are evaluate the prompt, LLM is just like that. So we'll understand some basic of the Claude code, and yeah, any people give the paper of Claude code foundations, anything, right? So it will help you lot of building understanding on your end. So hope you guys see you tomorrow in the next video. Follow, like, subscribe, everything.